Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Vocal Majority Podcast, your source for the conservative view on American politics and culture, and where the issues are discussed with goodwill, candor, and intelligence. And now, here's your host, Tony Acosta'd.
Thanks, Duke. This is Tony Acosta'd and the Great Vocal Majority Podcast, Volume 71, that I'm calling The Right to Being Acosta'd. Here's a quote for you. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, unquote. That was from Napoleon the Pig in the book Animal Farm by George Orwell. Freedom of the press is precious. We all say we want a free press, but we must define what that means just like anything else. Does a reporter have a First Amendment right to ask a politician a question? The First Amendment carries no meaning at all if it does not allow for any citizen, a reporter or anyone else, to demand answers to fundamental questions from government officials. The public also has every right to know the answers to those questions asked. Whether or not the government official provides a satisfactory answer to the question is another matter entirely. The duty of a free and independent press is to ask those questions and report on the answers. Editors, commentators, and pundits can ruminate the adequacy or inadequacy of the answers. Maybe further questions will need to be asked and answered. Are there any other obligations required in order for the First Amendment to be honored? The Constitution doesn't explicitly say, but generally accepted public manners and decorum are widely recognized and understood. When CNN's Jim Acosta participates in press briefings, he has the right to ask any question he'd like to ask. He's under no requirement to ask his questions in any particular way. He is free to ask questions. That is his right. It is the president's right to answer the question however he chooses to answer it. That is his right. In the case of Jim Acosta, there have been countless incidences where he monopolized the microphone and engaged in argumentation, debates, and lectures with Trump administration officials and even the president. The First Amendment does not guarantee the right of the free press to disrupt news media briefings. On numerous occasions, Acosta'd starts by asking a question and then argues with the answer he gets. The place for arguing with that answer is not the press briefing room. The proper place for this would be the op-ed pages of the newspaper or a commentary program, something like that. When any member of the media disrupts a press briefing, bringing attention to themselves and the public and the First Amendment are not served well. These distractions mean other news agencies will never have the opportunity to ask their own questions. And the press briefing becomes a sensationalized and controversialized event with footage of the, quote, principled journalist holding the powerful accountable to the truth, unquote. It's selfish self-promotion. But does Acosta have a First Amendment right to be in the briefing room, to behave in such a disruptive manner? It would seem that he does not. How could it be otherwise? If the Constitution guarantees Acosta'd's right to be a member of the White House press corps, doesn't that mean everyone also has that right? I mean everybody, me, you, everybody. If they don't, then we truly do have a situation where we've reached that moment in Orwell's Animal Farm that everyone is equal, but some are more equal than others. Haven't we? The Trump administration suspended Acosta'd's access to the White House press briefing. In response, CNN filed a lawsuit against the White House on First Amendment grounds. The White House is arguing there is no First Amendment right to be in the briefing room to ask a question. They are arguing that the president has the right to block or admit any reporter or news agency he wishes. This is probably legally true, but to actually carry it out would be politically unwise. Having said that, the White House has to make judgments every day with respect to access in the White House briefing room. While Acosta'd has no First Amendment right to the press briefing personally, and the Constitution does not mandate that the president meet with the press regularly or even at all, there have to be terms and conditions for access to the White House briefing room. There is nothing wrong with the White House laying the ground rules for such access when they are violated, take reasonable actions to discipline violators. That's at the core of Acosta'd's suspension. When CNN filed for Acosta'd's reinstatement in the court, citing the First Amendment, the case, which I believe is frivolous, was supported by other news outlets, including Fox News. By joining, Fox News made it very clear that they support the disruptive behavior by Acosta'd. Although they are siding with CNN on First Amendment grounds, Fox News' decision appears to be due to a groupthink mentality within the D.C. press corps. Essentially, Fox bowed to peer pressure, keeping solidarity with their profession, through CNN is wrapping itself in the Constitution, but is actually only using it to justify Acosta'd's antics and to protect themselves. Fox News and the rest of the Washington press corps joining in the lawsuit by CNN should be ashamed of themselves. The president does not have to hold daily press briefings, but when he does hold them, he has the right to invite whomever he wants. Now, since I wrote that, the judge in this case has issued a statement where he wants to see Acosta'd's press pass reinstated temporarily because he believes Acosta'd was not given due process. He made no mention of the First Amendment right, whether or not Acosta'd has a First Amendment right to be there, but only said that the White House did not follow its own rules in banning somebody, which I think is a reasonable decision given the way the White House argued their case. Nevertheless, I do think that this is an important enough issue that the White House should take this all the way to the Supreme Court and have them render that decision, which they will, which will obviously be that the President of the United States has every right to hold press conferences or not hold them with certain reporters that he wants and not hold them with other reporters that he doesn't want. The president has every right to do that. And by contrast, the media, if they are that portion of the media that may be frozen out of these kinds of press conferences, they have every right to criticize the president for doing such a thing. But what they don't have the right to do is what Jim Acosta does every time he's handed a microphone in the White House press briefing room or in front of the president. He engages in an argument. He stops, he asks a question, the question gets answered, then he argues with the answer. That is not why he's there. And I can totally understand why the media sides with him, because it's professional courtesy to do so. But it's also incumbent upon the White House to give Acosta'd the reasons why he was suspended and what it would take for him to be reinstated. That's it for me. I'm Tony Acosta'd from thegreatvocalmajority.com. Please subscribe to this podcast and the YouTube channel, and I'll speak to you guys soon. Thanks.